Good morning, everybody. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Teri Hunter. I'm an intuitive astrologer, and I'm here today, June 11th, 2023, with your weekly astrology horoscope and tarot. What I'm going to do today is I am going to talk about the week ahead's transits, and then I'm going to do a reading for each one of the signs. I'll pull one tarot card, and then I'll do an angel reading using my angel deck and my Camelot deck so that you can get advice from spirit and your guides for how to traverse these very exciting and yet sometimes a little bit scary times that we're walking through. So welcome. I can't read that. Is it Xenia? Snea? How are you? Welcome, welcome. I started a little bit early so I could do a little bit of business. These horoscopes today are based on whole sign Western astrology. If I was doing your chart, I would look at it in Placidus, but for the sake of such a large audience, we're going to talk about whole sign. Good morning, Dustin. Good to see you. Queen Leo. Queen Leo, you've got some fun stuff going on for you. Exciting stuff. Venus being in the house, So let's talk about what's going on. Pluto re-entered Capricorn today. Started at 2:30 a.m. Pacific time, and Pluto will remain at the later degrees of Capricorn until January 2024. And I believe this is very significant because for me, as I've studied and through my meditations, those last few degrees are really a mastering energy. It's an energy that is bringing an awareness, a certain amount of acceptance. And I say acceptance because in my personal meditations, Spirit has said, we are not broken. We do not need to be healed. What we are here to do is to experience balance. And in order to experience balance, there will be contrasting experiences. That way, it gives you a point of reference for your focus. So I think this is super powerful. And as I have surrendered to these concepts, I feel a little bit more proactive, more intentional within my own life. Now, Pluto's re-entry into Capricorn now makes me feel as if, yes, structures within our own lives may change, but I think what we're going to see is another layer of structures that we have unconsciously been imprinted by. Those structures are going to shift. I believe the educational systems are going through their own shift. So we're going to start to, within the next couple of decades, really start to address people's talents and their gifts versus just filling them with knowledge that has been filtered through who knows how many layers of people with varying intentions. I believe that where Pluto's reentry into Capricorn is a layer of awakening to our own discernment. I think, back when I was a little kid, all policemen were good people, all doctors had our best interest at heart, and I was taught to, on some level, blindly trust these authorities. And I'm not saying that everybody is out of balance, but certainly everybody is a human being on this planet. So this is where I believe the discernment is coming in, where we start to recognize that we need to take a second look before we just unconsciously buy information, dynamics, anything that doesn't really ring true to your heart is going to bring a little bit of an alert system up right now. And I think this is really powerful too, because I have found Julia Balaz. She's a galactic astrologer, and I am at this moment really, really considering taking one of her courses to further my knowledge there. Because as I looked at my own natal chart and found so many alignments to the varying centers that she talks about, the galactic center, the super galactic center, the great attractor, and the Shapley attractor. And that brings me to the South Node, which is now at 2 degrees Scorpio in an exact conjunction with the Shapley attractor. These points in the stars are literally receivers. They are receiving, they are consuming, they are attracting to them what they need in order to expand and grow. And I believe that this information is coming to our forefront because we too are expanding and growing. And it is our opportunity right now to discern through ancient materials, ancient astrology, etc., what really gets to evolve as it moves forward. Pluto is always referred to as a malefic, as, death and destruction. Nothing good happens, in Pluto for the most part. But I totally disagree with that. I personally think Pluto is my friend. Does Pluto pace me and put me through deep levels of excavation to my truth where my fears have hindered me? Yes. But as I surrender to the bigger picture of what I want to experience, then I'm willing to be more honest with myself about where my fears are holding me back. So I'm really, as you guys know, I'm a big fan of Pluto and Saturn. And both of them kick my butt all the time. But I kind of think that they love me. I don't know why I want to say that, but I do. It sounds kind of funny. So when we go into this energy of Pluto re-entering Capricorn, and the cardinal signs are going to feel it. Cancer is going to feel an opposition. Aries and Libra is going to feel the square of that. This is really not about beating yourself up, and really not about being frustrated. It's more about an opportunity, and an opportunity to be a more powerful creator, a more powerful attractor, which is what I think, as the South Node transits this spot and has been hovering over it for quite some time. The Shapley attractor has a 5 to, I believe, 12-degree orb. So as we have been experiencing the South Node in these earlier degrees, 10, 12 degrees and less of Pluto and Scorpio, is what I want to say, is I believe that we are becoming more and more aware of not just our own truth, but the information that is being fed to us. It is our opportunity to be discerning about that information, to take a second look as to whether it resonates with our heart and with our core of our being. So I think that South Node, representing an egoless point, the South Node representing a point of spirituality. And for me, Teri, as I define spirituality, it's an awareness of the laws of the universe and a willingness to apply them, even if for some reason they don't necessarily produce results for me right away. It's an awareness of my own momentum. It's an awareness of a pattern and an imprint, and then an ability to, through that awareness, represent a certain amount of patience as I recalibrate my frequency and align it to something more desirable to what I want to experience. And I believe that is a great service to other people. So here we've got Pluto, the ruler of the South Node, re-entering Capricorn, breaking down the structures that are no longer serve us, the structures of following blind authority because we're told to. I think we're going to stop doing what we're told to do and start doing what feels authentic to us. So this is very interesting. We also have Mercury entering Gemini today. Mercury rules Gemini, and it will be there lightning fast. It's going to zip on through. I think it's going to be there barely 2 weeks, and then it'll be on to Cancer. So when Mercury enters Gemini, this information that we're getting, this everyday, the news, the various news outlets, Fox, CNN, all these varying points of input. This is where I think it all kind of comes together, because as Mercury enters Gemini, it's triggering an awareness of our everyday thoughts, the things we consume through our everyday interactions with others. Then we see and are able to identify the structures through Pluto's reentry into Capricorn that may no longer be serving us. And then I feel like we get to step up into a vibration that actually uses what these challenging dynamics have to offer, and we start to represent, not really for others, but just the possibilities. This is where I really think we are of service to other people, not by turning and looking at their poverty and trying to eradicate their poverty or whatever their issue is, but rather representing possibilities through our vibrations. And I think that's why this information is coming, at least into my sphere, the information about this galactic center, the Shapley attractor, the Shapley cluster, because inadvertently I have operated on this system for most of my life. I was listening to Julia in another video. I can't remember who she was talking to because I was wandering through my house. But as a very early age child, I knew that if I told a lie and if I said, oh, I couldn't do this because my dog got hurt, or I can't do that because my grandma something, I was always very afraid if I said something negative that I would bring it forth, that it would end up happening. And I think this was my soul having an awareness of the power of my vibration, which is represented through the sounds that come out of my being. So I think this is super powerful. It's super important. And I want to offer this too, because I'm cuckoo right now. All right. I will tell you, I'm a cuckoo girl because I have this weird feeling I'm going to win the lottery. I don't know why. I've never felt like I was going to win the lottery before, but for some reason, I don't know if it'll be $1 million, $100, $100,000. I don't know. Maybe it seems crazy. But if we start to think about the things that can come to us in the way that seems fun and joyful, I believe we'll start to exercise the muscle of our own law of attraction and start to bring into our experience bounty and resources that we might not have had otherwise. So, I'm playing a little bit. I'm not crazy. I'm not turning into a gambler or anything. I just kind of taking, every time someone tips me, I'm using my tip money and buying a ticket. So who knows? I love that. I always say that. I'm cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. I always say that. We also have today, which I think is super important, Venus is in Leo. She moved into Leo, I believe, on the 5th, and she's going to be there for about 4 months. And today, she's actually in a square to Jupiter in Taurus. Now, Venus and Jupiter are pretty much friends. They kind of enjoy the same lavish meals and luxurious surroundings. But here with Venus in Leo and Jupiter in Taurus, I think the challenge is sort of with Jupiter in Taurus, I'm revisiting, what do I believe about my ability to create money? And Venus in Leo is saying, what do I want to do in the way of expressing myself and create resources for myself? Yes, we can talk about partnership and love and all sorts of other things here, but with this configuration at 5 degrees, meaning Jupiter is currently at 5 degrees, Venus is currently at 5 degrees, that is the Leo degree. So some of this may pertain to those of you that are seeking relationship, but I think this is really about what's important to me, what makes me feel purposeful and fulfilled. How do I express myself? How do I balance work life and in entertainment life? And am I doing a job where I'm allowing for a replenishing of my soul? Venus in Leo, I think this is, I know she's not exalted in Leo, but she loves being in Leo. It's almost like it's the type of thing where Venus in Leo wants a skywriter to, say, I love you. And she wants to be out loud and demonstrative in her love. So I think we're going to experience a lot of that over the next few months as well. So, Jay Sean, that sounds terrific. Are you talking about Venus in her energy for the, for making money? Because that's what I always, I don't want to negate relationships and the importance of the human connection. But when we feel a sense of flow in our resources, we are better in relation with others. That's wonderful, Stephen. So you're enjoying this Pride Week? Maybe it's Pride Month. I'm not quite sure. I've seen quite a few parades on TV. But anyway, all right, let me go on to Mercury is having also on the 15th this week. Mercury will be making a square to Saturn. And it is the month. That's what I thought. I believe when Mercury squares Saturn at 7 degrees, that we will start to receive information that we might has, let's just put it this way. I believe that information that up until now may have been only for those that were at the board, in the boardroom, or in the executive suite. I think we're going to start to get information, and I think it's information that on a subliminal level we've all kind of been expecting, and yet it feels a bit jarring. When I think about Mercury at 7 degrees and Saturn at 7 degrees, there's a Libra energy. There's a balancing energy. Again, I don't think we're broken. I believe that the challenging experiences lead us into clearer definitions of what we want. So when I think of the Libra energy, I really go to diplomacy and cooperation and harmony and peace. And peace is a sense of knowing the ebb and the flow, and surrendering to it and being aware of our own thoughts. So I think that when Saturn and Mercury make this square, we may find some information about our authorities, and the people that are governing our various homelands. Might be might be a little interesting. So I think that when it comes to the Pride Month, I think it's just about loving out loud, Dustin. I kind of look at it that way. I don't really take it as a dark energy of pride, stubborn pride, but rather a release of being contained or suppressed in some way. That's how I viewed it, and it kind of tickles my heart, to be honest with you. So I think that this week, the main things that are important is to be aware of our mind and how the information that is being received, how are we filtering it, and if the information feels really counter to our own personal beliefs, I feel like now is an opportunity to really put yourself on a media diet, potentially. I've always told Spirit that I don't want to see things I have no influence over. So I don't want to have, I don't want to know about. Before 9/11 hit, I got to tell you, for 2 weeks, I was a freaking nervous wreck. I broke out into hives. I was walking around looking over my shoulder, something bad's happening. I mean, it was bad for me. And I think it all got triggered because I was watching my first ever season of Big Brother. And I'd never seen it before. I tuned in when it was down to the final four. And there was a fireman named Angel, and he got voted out of the house. And he went back to his home, which was New York. And he got there just in time to be one of the rescuers that didn't make it through 9/11. And I felt like at that time in my life, I had actually tuned into Angel. I didn't know it at the time, but watching that show, I just got chills everywhere. Watching that show was I think what started the whole cycle of my anxiety. So the reason I say that is because I told Spirit, if I have no influence over a situation, I don't want to feel anxious about it. I don't want to freak out about it. So I want to offer it this way. If information comes through that's of a Saturnian way that feels dark and a little bit depressing and stokes your fears, your connection to your guides and your team on the other side, you can call them whatever you like. You can call it God, you can call it source energy, you can call it your angels. The name is not really important. The intention to connect is. I think we'll find solace in those connections. I think we'll find wisdom, understanding that in order for things to come into balance, the deep, dark psychological imprint on the human will have to come up a bit, and meaning unearthed. And that's where I think the South Node on the Shapley attractor is so powerful. I really think that this is an interesting theory, and that it spans 3 signs, which is Libra and Scorpio and Sagittarius, which to me, living, in the United States, that's the season of harvest. So I was starting to feel a lot of underbelly within this information that was actually serving us to connect more succinctly and more clearly to the depths of who we are, and to feel the connection and the love of source energy, of God, of what is out there that we cannot see with our eyes, more concretely. That's the way I want to put it. So that's the big stuff going on this week. Again, as we get towards the end of the week, And I don't know if you all saw the new moon video that I did, but I did a new moon in Gemini. So that's up and ready for your viewing consumption. And in that, I did mention that Saturn is going to station at 7 degrees for the whole month of June. So again, that's where I'm really, the degrees really speak to me, because this is where, am I a harbor of harmony? Am I creating peace? How am I interacting with others in a way that allows me to feel balance, even if the rest of everything else is out of balance? And that's another thing that I feel has been a gift for me lately, is that through disruption or through literally my own irritation of others, I have felt that I was more proud of how I showed up versus the situation. So it's been very interesting. All right, so let's go into our readings. For those of you that are new to the room, I'm going to start with Gemini, because we're in Gemini season, and we start with the birthday month. So happy birthday, all my Geminis. And I'm going to move my way around the Zodiac. We're going to pull one tarot card for each sign, and then we're going to do a reading. So let's see where we're going. Well, thank you so much, Jules. I appreciate that. I don't really take any credit for it, because I really believe that I am an instrument of spirit, and that's something that I'm kind of even more proud of lately, because crazy things come into my brain, or at least they feel crazy to me, but I know in my commitment, I've said I'm going to say it, and if I say it, I just have to release it after that. And then I find out, then I get validation from some clients. I did a reading for a client this week, and at one point I had told her she was going to move in with a specific type of human. And she said to me that she thought I was, crazy, that would never happen. And the interesting part about it is we both kind of put that situation into almost in a box, like, this is going to happen in your love life. And it wasn't actually her love life. It was just a housing situation, but the exact dynamic took place. So it also reminded me to open up, that every time I see Libra, am I always going to just think partnership and marriage? No, it means many more things. So one of the things I want to offer you guys is to broaden each one of these signs and each one of the hues, and to see how they integrate with one another. Neptune is not just about being, addiction and mental illness. Pisces and Neptune are about creativity and connection to spirit. So it's important to really remember the broadness of these dynamics, and to build on them with your own intuitive information. Good to hear. Everything's kind of calming. Good. All right, let's go on to our Geminis. Our first card for our Geminis is the moon. Now, traditionally in tarot, this is a little bit of a challenging energy. The dogs are howling at the moon. It's associated with confusion and indecision, and yet I don't think so. For my Geminis, I believe this week, isn't it on the 18th? I did a video and I still don't remember, but I think it's the 18th, which is the new moon. In any case, it is coming up in the next week or so. And I want to offer it this way, because you're ruled by Mercury. I think that this moon is asking my Geminis to start to nurture their intuitive body, to maybe these silos in the back are really about the prison of the mind versus being able to tap into your emotional body. And when I say this, I want to offer it this way, because as information is coming to us, and we're talking about the square between Mercury and Saturn, we may, thank you very much, Small Wildflowers, 18th. I should know that. I just literally did a video, put my brain in and out. But my point is this: for my Mercurial ruled people, this is an opportunity for you to exercise your intuitive knowing by honoring your emotional body. If a piece of information comes across, when I was a little girl, there was a cola, Shasta Cola, and I hated the taste of it. And I didn't know at the time, but there was something in my head that kept telling me that soda wasn't good for me. And I did a lot of things that weren't good for me. I'm no pure girl by any means, but I never got into soda. Never got into Coke, Pepsi, or anything. Yeah, occasionally I would have it, but I barely ever finished the glass of soda. And now, decades later, we know soda's not so great for us. So I want to say that this moon is not about confusion, but more about my Geminis trying to, or being aware of their emotional body as an indicator of their intuitive body. So if something feels off to you, or you trust a situation beyond what appears to be its viability, then I think you're tapping into something much deeper within yourself. I want to offer this Senha. I'm not okay. My first one, my Asa is a little rough. Let me actually make this bigger here. Hold on a second. Thanks for bearing with me, everybody. I want to offer this. When we say need, should, have to, we are creating a weird resistant energy. When we say we get to do something, it creates a more joyous energy. So the mind is a muscle, and we get to be patient with that muscle because it operates on its own. So as we become more aware of our intuitive knowing, and we surrender to the weird ebb and flow, oh, I don't know if that's right. Oh, I don't know if that's right. When I get my intuitive hits, I don't always know if I'm right or wrong. I just know it's my job to honor the messages coming through, so that at a later time, I might get a validation that then lets me trust even more. I say to my clients when I'm doing a reading, don't tell me anything. If I tell you something you already know, I don't know that about you. So it gives life to the things that we don't know about you. So that's where I'm going. All right. So, Gemini, I believe this week is about planting the seeds for you to trust your intuition and just start to work with it a little bit more, to honor it, maybe even take notes. Oh, I had this weird gut feeling. I'm going to put a note down on this day. So you can look back, and then you can start to trust the pattern. Because I truly believe our intuitive knowing is what we really are, and that the brain is a challenge because we only use, a wee bit of it, as they say, even when we know we have it. All right, here we go. Gemini, rising, moon, sun, and stelliums. I always put the moon on a par with the rising sign because humans are emotional beings. And if we don't believe something about ourselves, it's very difficult to manifest any stability with it. Okay, here we go. Our first angel for Gemini is Opal. The second is Ariel. The third is Celeste. And the final is Bethany. All right, Gemini. Opal is being joined by the Goblin. Ariel is being joined by the Birth and the Rebirth card. Celeste is being joined by the Forgiveness card. And Bethany is being joined by the Death card. Okay. Now, I want to offer this for my Geminis because this you're having your solar return. It's like your own personal new year. And I believe that what we're starting to feel is somewhere along the line, Gemini is starting to connect to, now let's talk about the twins, the mind and the intuition working together. Because Opal talks about you being a child of God, that you're safe and you are cared for. And here we have the human ego. And I always think of this as when I'm edging God out, where the ego is coming from a very human, very material point of view. If I can't see it, it can't happen. If I don't know where that resource is, I'm in the danger zone. And I think that's the absolute opposite. I'm very much a fan of Abraham Hicks. I live my life in an awareness of the law of attraction, and I depend on it. I don't look to outside human resources to find me where I feel safe. It comes from in here. So I believe that for my Geminis, this birth and rebirth card is Pluto starting to transform you into trusting your intuitive knowing, taking, every once in a while when we take an accounting of where we have not known something and then it proves itself, it gives us a sense of trust. It's almost, that's why I call it divine disruption. Because oftentimes in my human mind, if something runs amok, I'll be like, oh man. And then in hindsight, I'll be like, oh wow, if that bad thing hadn't happened, this good thing couldn't have happened. So when I started working for myself, I hadn't planned it. I didn't say on this day in March, I'm going to become, an entrepreneur. I got pissed off at some little girl that was crawling up my fanny to tell me, what I wasn't. And I just got sick to death of it. And I literally quit my job. So crazy. I quit my job. I called an old boyfriend who had a lot of money. I'm like, will you give me $5,000? I'm not going to pay you back. He said, yes. And then I was just like, all right, Spirit, if this is supposed to happen, if this is what I signed up for, if this is what I'm capable of, let's fly. Now, I didn't do it crazy. I had a certain amount of momentum going so I could trust myself, because here, Gemini, is not only does Celeste represent a shift in your work environment, a shift in your home environment, but it also represents a shift in the mind. Because whenever I see Celeste, I think you can put me anywhere on the planet, I think a certain way. And here's our forgiveness card. The forgiveness card for me is never about forgiving human frailty. It's a reconciliation, an understanding of, if this hadn't transpired, this might not have transpired. Because I believe for my Geminis, this death card is really Pluto telling you that it's about you. It's really important for you to start to put yourself first, because when you care for yourself, you are better able to care for others. And Spirit might even be saying that you aren't taking care of yourself. You're not necessarily seeing yourself as an important component to what's going on in your life. So if you're a giver and you're giving and giving and giving to your own depletion, that's not really giving. That's depleting. So I feel like overall for my Geminis, this is a time to maybe honor your new moon, plant the seeds for a new experience, maybe start using your ability to write and to observe what you are thinking and how you're rolling and how you're interpreting information. We know that Mercury takes sound bites, runs and spreads that around the zodiac. Sagittarius does the deep dive into the information, right? That's what we look at on that axis. So now I think this is more about having a conscious awareness of how that information is affecting you personally. And that's why I go on media diets and I have no idea why certain things are happening. And people will say, do you live under a rock? And I say, I try to. Because I don't know that all the information that comes along my path, especially when I'm watching, afternoon news, if it really serves my well-being. Sometimes it puts me in a state of real confusion. All right, let's go on to our Cancers. Cancer, we have the Knight of Pentacles. This is steady. This is a little bit stoic. It's a little bit, I want to use the word stubborn. There's not movement in this Knight. And on some level that can feel good, but it can also feel, I want to use the word arresting. It makes me feel like there's a slowness of expansion. So let's see what topic we're going into, because I don't know if I think this is just about money. I feel like, Cancer opposes Capricorn. And if you're a Cancer rising, Capricorn is your 7th house. And the last degrees of your partnership house, your diplomacy house, your harmony house, your cooperation. I already said that. The house where we're building a sense of a bridge. And I'm wondering what area is Spirit talking about? Because if Cancer, if you've been feeling a little like you've been through the ringer and back, I couldn't argue that. I couldn't say that doesn't feel true. And at the same time, I don't want to sit on that platform, because the laws of attraction will just bring more of that to me. So I think there's maybe a little bit of a fuss between being stubborn and then holding your ground. And maybe we're going to decipher where that is. Because if you're holding ground for an actual and elevated experience, that feels like a good thing. But if you're holding space or you're too engaged in a situation that you see with your eyes that you find unpleasant, this can actually stick you there. So let's see. The topic is Archangel Michael asking you to have the courage to make the changes that you want. Isabella is saying, yes, the timing is right. Grace and Antoinette is about compassion. And Merlina is here offering us more balance. On the face of the angel Merlina, it talks about confusion and doing research, but I never see a wizard as actually being confused, because in order to be a wizard, you have to master alchemy. And here, there's a lot of balance. Everything is in twos here. There's two angels above. There's two angels below. There's two dolphins. There's the yin and the yang. So I believe that this is more about a potential for magic to happen as you have the ability to shift. Because if this is about being stubborn and being stubborn about something that, this never happened. Oh, okay. We have the frog joining Archangel Michael. We have the love card. We have Grace and Antoinette being joined by the dog. And we have Merlina being joined by the water fairy. Okay, for my Cancers, straight up feels like it's about, if you have experienced challenges in your love life, in the intimate relationships in your life, this can be family relationships, relationships with children, relationships with people that you care about. If you've taken a spot where this doesn't change, nothing changes, it's always the same. When am I going to meet my person? I haven't met my person. That line of thought gets to have a do-over, because Archangel Michael, who also represents protection, is asking you, Cancer, are you talking about something that may be very true and in your material experience, but is it serving you? Are you standing on some level holding space inadvertently for the experience you don't want? Because the frog is offering not only good luck, but the cleaning of the emotional house. And the emotional house starts in the mind, really, because it starts through a series of thoughts. Oh, this doesn't work out for me. This doesn't work out for me. Every time I date somebody, they're a loser. Because this is the love card. And Isabella is saying, yes, the timing is right for you to experience the love you're looking for. But now you get to be in cooperation to hold steadfast versus stubborn. And I don't want to make it negative, but when we've experienced a challenge for a long time, it does seem real. It does seem like this always happens to me. And this is why I think that Pluto re-entering Capricorn and opposing you on some level is asking you to break up that thought. Even if it's true, to continue to speak of it is only to continue to give it life, because this is about giving yourself grace, giving yourself compassion, and now being more loyal to the idea of the love that you want to receive, being more excited or more aware of, if you have experienced something negative or something challenging, are you only like looking at the challenge and what happened to you, or are you looking at the underbelly of it and why that negative thing is actually holding you in a safely? Because somewhere, I don't think you're really confused. I think there's something within your emotional body that's being awoken. And I guess awoken is correct. I want to offer it this way too, because the water fairy talks about emotions. Merlina talks about magic, about wizardry, about, again, alchemy. So as you go, you know what? I've been telling a bad story for a long time. I've been telling the story. I'm always the girl that gets left behind. I'm always the one that's holding the short stick. I'm always the one who doesn't have blah, blah, blah. That's your participation. And rather than criticizing it or being like, oh my gosh, I didn't know I was doing that, this is about compassion for yourself as you are an awakening soul in a human experience. And the human experience is completely imprinted. It literally, from the time we pop out the wound, those that love us around us are inadvertently labeling us. This is my colicky baby. This is my busy baby. This is my easy baby, blah, blah, blah. And that goes on throughout our lives. So as you start to feel the mastery of your own intuitive body and be like, well, that was then and this is now. And what if there's a bigger story to my story? I tell people oftentimes that Spirit has shown me that in these very challenging times where technology is giving us more a broader reach, and we are aware of things that in past times we weren't aware of. We lived in more of a bubble. Now we have an opportunity to take that information and discern whether or not it is true. So when I'm saying this, it's because there are many people, the Spirit has shown me, that are going to experience their greatest loves, their greatest accomplishments in their work environment or within their own entrepreneurship, within their life's purpose in later chapters, because we're expanding the human experience. We're expanding not only what we expect of it, but what our intentions are for our own experience. So for my Cancers, hold steadfast, but without a stubborn energy. It's like, and I know I sounded like an idiot when I said I was going to win the lottery, but I don't necessarily think I might win millions of dollars. I just think that there's somewhere around right now that I'm being inspired to think in abundance. And I am playing the lottery as an opportunity for me to play with my vibration. And that's what I've been doing. So I've been winning like $20 here, win 20, buy 2 more tickets, that kind of thing. And so I notice personally my own vibration about it. I'm not attached to the outcome. I'm more invested right now in me as I roll through this. It's kind of funny to watch myself do it. Anyway, all right, here we go. For our Leos, we have the Judgment card. Now, this is very Plutonian for me, and it isn't about somebody judging you. I think it's the phoenix rising from the ashes. I think this is where there becomes an awareness. These characters, their bodies are blue, but their minds are illuminated with this yellow and sort of orange. And that's very much Archangel Gabriel, the same color of hair. So there's an awareness coming on. Now, Venus's entry into your first house could make you aware of a lot of things. And her 4-month journey through your first house could be really fun. Even in the retrograde, I'm not sure I think that's necessarily a challenging dynamic, as much as this whole period of time is about you establishing yourself to you. Let's see where you are going to rise like the phoenix. Our first angel is Fiona. The second is Archangel Gabriel. The third is Archangel Raphael. And the final is Ray. Fiona is being joined by the Queen. Archangel Gabriel is being joined by the Birth and the Rebirth card. Archangel Raphael is being joined by Fear, and Ray is being joined by the Risk card. This feels really fun to me. As I was shuffling the other cards, I was noticing that on the Judgment card, you can see on the end of the horn, you can feel there's a vibration coming out of the horn. And I've worked with these cards for decades, and I still notice nuances that I hadn't seen before. And that made me feel like, Leo, it's important to be aware of sound right now. The sound of your voice. What are you saying about your own skills, about your own talents, about what you want, about the idea of conceiving children, about the idea of what is viable for you? Because the one thing that I think has been my anchor is an inner knowing that I truly was meant to do this work. It doesn't matter if I'm the best at it or the worst at it. It's more the commitment to myself and the trusting of my inner being. So when I see Fiona say, now that you've asked God and the angels for help, be open to receiving. And there is the Queen. She is about reception. She is about fertility. She's about the actually giving birth to not just other humans. And she does it in a relaxed way. She's like, she's aware that she's a receiver. This is why the Shapley cluster and this information coming in such a tidal wave to the astrology community is so powerful for me, because it just accentuates my inner knowing that we are the laws of attraction, the law of allowing, the idea that we are magnetic beings. And when we start to plug that in with a certain amount of consciousness, we will be powerful beyond any government. Because here, Archangel Gabriel says you have an important life's purpose in arts and communications. And there's the birth and the rebirth card. And here is the sound. And I think that that's not only the sound of your own voice, but many of you may be very talented and creative beings. And now allowing that to join, to be birthed of you is going to give you new life. And here, this was really exciting. When I see Archangel Raphael in the fear card, I feel as if I'm having an illumination about what fear really means. And is fear, I'm examining fear a little differently. Now let's think about Leo. Leo rules the zodiac. It is never lost on me that the house that rules romance, rules personal expression, rules entertainment, the child, the performer, the clown, it rules the zodiac. Capricorn doesn't rule the zodiac. Virgo doesn't rule the zodiac. So where have we gotten off track as humans and inadvertently measured us with the wrong measuring stick? So I think that Leo is going to have an epiphany about their fears, and then start to work with spirit and say, okay, if I'm really meant to be that singer, if I'm really meant to be that performer, if I'm really meant to be that comedian, if I'm meant to express my life with more joy and more personal pleasure, then help bring that in. Because Ray is about my connection to spirit, and that's where my power lies. And here's the risk card. Will Leo risk a deeper knowing of your connection to the source that is within you? That is the great attractor within you, will bring everything that you need in order to not only survive, but to thrive. And in doing so, you truly represent and offer a rebirth for all those who will listen. And I don't know if they're listening with their ears as much as they're listening with their heart. Again, Leo rules the heart. All right, on to our Virgos. And I want to encourage, anybody who has a large group of planets in anywhere from Virgo, late degrees of Virgo, which is going to kick in the great attractor. No, the supergalactic center is at 2 degrees Libra. The great attractor is at 14 degrees Sagittarius. The Shapley cluster is at 2 degrees Scorpio. And then, of course, the galactic center is at 27 degrees Sagittarius. The galactic center and the supergalactic center have a 3 to 5 degree orb, and the great attractor and the Shapley attractor have a 10 to 12 degree orb. And part of the reason why that orb is so big is because the energy is so powerful. So when you're looking at your natal chart, be mindful of those points, because I think they'll be very illuminating for you moving forward. They certainly, it was like, I've said before that Pluto has traversed and been conjunct each one of my personal planets since I've been born. And then when I learned about this, I just was like, wow, I can't believe how it's all lining up. Okay, Virgo, you are going through a transformation. Now we know Saturn is opposing your first house, because Saturn is currently at 7 degrees Pisces and it's going to retrograde. So anybody who's in the early degrees of Virgo is going to experience that opposition. And while by nature, the earth signs all are cooperative, they all trine each other, there's a feeling of this feels like a rebirth to me. It feels like the king is dead. And now this is like a spiritual energy. I'm not going to make it the Pope, but I feel like I'm almost surrendering to this transformation as the rules, as Pluto goes back into Capricorn and breaks up some of these old antiquated rules and ways of being. It could be a little jarring for my Virgos at first, and yet at the same time, it can be very liberating. So let's see where this transformation is happening. That's super important, Stephen. That moon is really, really important. I don't know if you guys have had a chance to look up Julia Balaz. She's, as I said, she's kind of catching on like wildfire right now, at least from my perception. And I think these points are so illuminating for those of us that have been on a journey and as we've been known as seekers. Okay, Virgo. Our first angel is Vanessa. The second is Ariel. The third is Oceana. And the final is Isabella. Vanessa is all about faith or fear and how do you make your decisions, which brings you closer to the deeper truth of who and what you are. Now, when we think of Virgo, we think of great responsibility like Capricorn. We think of process and analyzation from a very human perception, from what we know in our human evolution. And now I think we're looking for Virgo to allow for a deeper transformation, to be aware of their emotional body and what that's trying to tell them about their intuitive body. All right, Vanessa is being joined by the Goblin. Ariel's being joined by the Protection card. Oceana is being joined by the Fire Fairy, and Isabella is being joined by the Forgiveness card. The ego card is so interesting to me because it really speaks of a energy that is earthbound, so that I'm sort of edging out because I can't see it with my eyes, I can't touch it with my hands, I can't taste it with my mouth. I'm edging out an experience that I'm being offered. And I believe that that is, if indeed anything you're pursuing, whether it be financial security, whether it be a relationship, whatever you want, will you only base it on what you can see with your five senses or what you can sense with your five senses? Or will you be brave enough to have faith in that which cannot be seen? Because here, Ariel talks of psychic and spiritual experiences, and there's the Protection card. So I believe you're going through a metamorphosis where on some level, being very attached to the earth experience and to what it has to offer is part of the transformation, a part of the revelation that others will witness that you go through. Because Oceana is all about my emotional body, all about trusting an intuitive knowing, trusting that gut instinct. And here is optimism and creativity and passion. And I believe that this is something that Virgo has been calling forth on some level, because Isabella is saying, yes, the time is right for you to start to be aware of how you make your decisions or how you take your actions. And if you're taking them because, Bob in the cubicle next to me will be mad if I call in sick again, will Bob be relevant in your life, 10, 24 minutes from now? I think we're being called forth to look at what we want to experience with a broader perception of the possibilities of it. Just because I can't see it doesn't mean it isn't real, doesn't mean it can't happen, doesn't mean it isn't true. Where am I participating in the co-creation of this? I am participating with my faith. And through my faith, I have an opportunity to experience something miraculous, thereby protecting me from my ego and giving me the ability to trust my heart a little bit more. And that's where the whole reconciliation comes in. And that's where we become more aligned to the truth of who we are. And again, this is Pluto going back into Capricorn, because when Pluto moves into Aquarius, I believe that this is where humans are going to really start to stretch to a new octave of creation. And we're going to be aware of our thoughts. We're going to be more responsible for our thoughts. We're going to be more mindful of those thoughts. And I believe wholeheartedly that the acceptance that we are calling forth of the diversity on our planet is preparing us to experience diversity in the galaxy. Because humans don't seem to be really, if we can't accept each other in our human bodies, how are we going to accept people in other types of bodies? Or I don't even know if I should call them people, energies. And it's coming. I think in my lifetime, I think I still got a few years left. And I think in my lifetime, I'm going to have the privilege of being able to see this intergalactic community start to form. All right, here we go. Libra, here we go. Victory. This is a wonderful energy. It is the halfway point in the minor arcana of the fire energy. And there's been a sense of victory where this character has been to battle and now he's coming back feeling a sense of celebration. Let's see what we're going to celebrate. As I became my sister and I have a very challenging relationship. And now that our father is dead and our mother is just batshit crazy, so we have no relationship anymore. We don't talk, we don't see each other. We live like 6 miles away from each other, no interaction whatsoever. And we've always had a very challenging. She's a Libra rising, I'm an Aries rising. We're exact opposites, right? And yet we have many commonalities within the chart. My sister's rising sign is 2 degrees of Libra, which is the supergalactic center. My north node is 3 degrees of Libra. And as I look at our synergy chart, I'm blown away because I think it looks like we should get along a lot better than we do, and yet we don't. So where I'm going with this is I think somewhere this victory for my Libras may not really have to do with partnership, but it may have to do with you in relation to other people and how you are showing up in an evolved version of yourself. And rather than feeling like I have to be overly cooperative to the point of diminishing myself, I'm shifting that thought somewhere. That's the way I'm looking at it. All right, let's go into our reading for Libra. First is Bridget looking deeper into a situation. There's Merlina calling forth magic and balance. There's Archangel Uriel dealing with frustration and anger. And then there's Sonia. Well. So far, a little challenging. Welcome, Anna. All right. Bridget is being joined by the Bee card. Merlina's being joined by the Stag. Archangel Uriel is dealing with or being joined by Focus, and Sonia is being joined by the Restriction card. Okay, so this to me feels very much as a Libra sun. This makes sense to me. There is I believe wholeheartedly that we are being called forth to be brave in our own self-examination. But this isn't about going back to your childhood and looking at how your parents treated you. It feels more about where am I today? Am I acknowledging my own evolution? Can I identify where divine disruption took place? And now it has evolved me into a place where I feel victorious over that imprint. I believe that this always represents my being energy, which is what do I believe about a situation? And as I believe it, I focus in that direction. So now Libra is being called forth to look as to what is your deep belief about you and about your value and about your contribution. Because I've always felt as if Libra's energy was best served when 2 me's become a we in the sense of partnership. So my individuality is key to the health and the viability and the thriving of my partnerships. So here is this magical Merlina saying that balance, because when I look at Merlina, it says indecision and confusion, but this deck feels like the pictures and the words don't match. So I've made up my own version of it. And that's how Spirit gives me my messages, because I'm not married to the structure of the card, but use it as a template and then build upon it. Because everything in the picture has balance of some kind, yin and the yang. And here is the leadership card. I don't think this is about stubborn pride. I think this is about standing in leadership. And the leadership comes in through your journey and what you believe about yourself, because you have learned that a focus on frustration, a focus on what's pissed me off, a focus on where I've been hurt and not it hasn't been acknowledged is actually messing me up. I want to offer it this way because I'm a Libra I've got that Aries rising and a Taurus moon. Okay. My Taurus moon is in the 2nd house. I cannot be more stubborn emotionally. You can't move me unless I feel it at the depths of my soul. I'm not going to shift just because somebody tells me something is true. So I say that because when I look at Sonia and I look at the restriction card, I almost want to say to my Libras, connect to spirit. Allow yourself to sit in meditation. Allow yourself to walk along some sort of path that connects you with nature so that nature can be the device that spirit uses to make you feel victorious over what has been challenging. And even if you can't see physical evidence of the reconciliation, your beingness, your awareness, your almost gratitude for the journey will actually bring in a sense of peace and calm that you're looking for and strengthen your connection and your resolve in knowing and trusting that that which you cannot see will manifest as you allow for it to be called forth. I am always teasing, and people, sometimes they get what I'm saying, but oftentimes my jokes are just for me. But I use Esther Hicks's "I'm ready to be ready to be ready." Abraham says that all the time when we're manifesting something and yet it hasn't shown up. Oftentimes the human gets in frustration. When? I cannot tell you how many people come to me and like, when is it going to happen? And when I try to identify your frustration as a block, they get even more frustrated with me. And that's part of my journey, is to allow them to have their feelings and not try to take responsibility for trying to make it feel better for them. So for my Libras, your victory comes this week as you're aware of your being energy, as you're aware where your frustrations and your focus on a frustration is actually blocking the manifestation. And then you're willing and ready to go into that place of meditation, into quiet time, in communing with nature, which I think is the greatest tool for connecting with spirit. When I first started my work for myself, I had this really weird, and it's all in hindsight. I didn't know it was happening at the time, but most people would coach you on go marketing, discount your services, blast people with information about you so they'll want your to book services. I never did any of that. In fact, I don't respond well to people who just send me emails. And do I, of course, send out emails announcing videos? Yes. I'm very inconsistent about it because I have my own resistance to receiving them. So I started to say to spirit, I don't like marketing. It feels weird and it feels just not right to me. So I sat on my couch and imagined myself like a movie premiere beam. And I would put my beam up through the top of my head and I would imagine it vacillating back and forth, and that people from far distances would see that light and be like, what's happening over there? I want to go over there. And as I did that, that was my regular marketing practice, was to connect to spirit and make myself a beacon of light so people would find me. And I started to become so incredibly, I want to say successful, but it was successful by my own measure. I don't know if it was successful by other people's measure. And I remember that first year listening to the song Let It Go from Frozen. No wrong, no right, no rules for me. That was so powerful for me. And I would jump around my living room dancing. And then the next day, 4 people would book. And to me, that was like, wow, 4 people in one day. And I'd watch people come and go out of my house. And the more I got excited about that, the more I believed that it wasn't that I was working hard. It was that I was allowing it to come to me. I was trusting that when people walked in my door, they were pre-qualified by spirit to be here. So I really want to offer that to my Libras, because that's where your victory will come, no matter what it is you want to manifest. Okay, on to our Scorpios. Rising moon, sun, and stelliums. Our tarot card for our Scorpios is the 3 of Cups. Now, this is an energy that most people say is one of celebration. But if you look deeper, this is the 3 faces of the woman. It shows evolution. It shows wisdom. It shows a celebration that I've harvested my experiences, and I have found bounty as a result of them. There's a certain amount of, I almost want to say there's a certain amount of grace in that card. It's like I'm not villainizing the younger part of myself that didn't know any better. So let's look at Scorpio. What is your totem? The scorpion, the stinger. Isn't that what they talk about? Oh, you're a Scorpio. Oh, you got a sassy side. That's the first thing everybody says, which doesn't really always feel good, probably. But you know what? I think that there's a wisdom coming forth that allows you to see maybe even the young child in a comment like that, where you yourself allow yourself to be transformed, because the other totem is the ego. And we don't talk about the eagle much when we associate with Scorpio. And the eagle in this deck represents the connection to the angelic realm, the connection to source energy. So Scorpio, I think there's something very deep and powerful going on for you. And right now, if you are early born Scorpio, 2 degrees, anywhere from 5 to 12 degrees, the closer the orb, the more intense the feeling when you're talking about the Shapley cluster. And here we're talking about Scorpio. 2 degrees of Scorpio is the Shapley attractor. It is the biggest and largest point within the cluster. So I think this is super powerful for you, because as you have garnished wisdom, as you have learned how to trust your intuitive knowing, because sometimes you see the darkness underneath. And seeing the darkness underneath, you might be like, oh, and other people are like, don't say that. And you're like, what? It's right here in front of us. And the other humans don't want to engage. They're like, if we ignore it, it's going to go away. Scorpio knows better. So I think this is really powerful for you, because I think this is where you make a quantum leap into a new experience for yourself. Welcome, Under the Moon. So glad you could join us. All right, so Scorpio. Okay, and just since Under the Moon is new here, and if there's other new people, I'll just clarify. I started at Gemini. We start with the birthday month because my Libra sun felt it was unfair to always start with Aries, and then I started starting with Pisces, and that started to feel unfair because I was always going one direction. So now we've decided we start with the birthday month and we work our way around the zodiac. And for our Scorpios, this is our Three of Cups, is our tarot card for the week. And your ruling planet has just moved back into Capricorn, a mastering of the structures and what you're going to build in this life. All right, Adriana says she's leading you to the answers to your prayers. Mystique says, keep charging ahead. Fiona says, now that you've asked God and the angels for help, be open to receiving. And Indriel says, you are a light worker. You are here to demonstrate so that other people can experience your bounty and the harvest of that bounty. All right, Adriana is being joined by the Queen. Mystique is being joined by the Spider. Fiona is being joined by the transformational swan, and Indriel is being joined by the cat. I feel like for my Scorpios, now I've got to say this, having the South Node going through your first house is not easy. And I'm about to have the South Node entering my sun sign. It's going to go into Libra. And as I think about these things, because as it went through my Scorpio, I had a big change. When it hit my Mercury, I had a big shift in my clients and the people that I would see every day. And at first it scared me because some of them were upsets. Some of them were misunderstandings. Some of them triggered me because I'm held to a different standard than most people. And I have been my whole life. It kind of pisses me off. But my point is this for my Scorpios, because as you have integrated your wisdom and who you are and the beauty of who you are, the savoriness, don't shave off any of your edges. Learn how to use them like a good tool so you can cut into that piece of fruit that you want to enjoy, because it's a time for you to receive. And there's Adriana saying she's leading you to the answers to your prayers. So there's a certain amount of while you represent power and control, your greatest power and control may be in your willingness to sit back and let spirit inspire the next human action. Because while Mystique says to keep charging ahead, we're coming out of the dark. There's an unknowing here. Now, the spider for oftentimes represents relationships for me, but here I think I'm going to creative projects. I think I'm going to Scorpio's creativity, whatever you want to build, whatever you want to birth, because as you continue to charge ahead, you're going to completely experience something new and different in and of yourself, because spirit is going to illuminate you with some sort of inner knowing that's going to propel you into an action that's going to make you feel like you're taking off. And I think this is super exciting because everything you have, all the wisdom you've garnished from the South Node going through your first house, calling forth a deeper knowing. I think the nodes are super, super powerful. And the thing I noticed this time around, that I notice things in weird ways, and I kind of think that it happens in some sort of divine order, because I always just thought the nodes didn't have retrogrades. And if we look at what the nodes have been doing, they've been hanging out at 3 degrees forever. I mean, and then they did this before when they hung out at 13 degrees for a while. I noticed because my Mercury's at 13 degrees Scorpio. So here, having the South Node having been at 3 degrees for a very long time, now it's moved to 2 degrees. So the 3rd degree is the Gemini degree. Will I be egoless about what my mind is telling me or what my mind has been trained for me to think? And am I now having a discernment here? Am I being able to decipher with what I've learned? Does it work for me? If I listened to everything that my parental unit tried to tell me, I would be the smallest person on earth. I would probably work in a toll booth all by myself, never interacting, making this amount of money, because I come from people who live in scarcity and defend that scarcity with their lives. And I was the opposite. I'm like, this is BS. So I say that because Scorpio, you truly are a light worker here. Your being energy and who and what you are is so important for all of us, because you're going to give us new life through your independence. This cat for me is representing 9 lives. And that's why you're being led into a place of receiving the things that you need rather than efforting for them. And the Scorpios that are maybe a little unconscious, that feel that strong sense of needing to, control a situation, they're in the midst of their own transformation. But for those of you that the lights have come up and you're more aware of your ability to receive, you're incorporating the wisdom of your journey so far, bounty is coming to you. And when I say bounty, I like to say that more than money, because I don't think money is really that satisfying. I think it's broader than that it comes through harmonious wealth, through this feeling of trusting the ebb and the flow of the universe. And that is a gift that I believe I've been given, but I had to give it to myself. It was a co-creation with spirit, because I had to be brave enough to allow for that. All right. Very excited for my Scorpios. I love my Scorpios. All right, Sagittarius. Ooh, money. This is the mastery of the material. The Queen of Pentacles is prolific. We see the bunny in the background, and it's got movement. We see the energy of Capricorn. We see the little bit of the goats on her throne or her seat. We also see this little character underneath, which is her subconscious. And there's a feeling of her understanding her subconscious here. So let's look and see for our Sagittariuses where the mastery of the material is coming in. Our first angel is Shanti, the angel of peace and tranquility. The second is Rosetta. The third is Rochelle. And the final is Celeste. Now, within the Sagittarius energy, which I think is super interesting, because the Sagittarius energy holds 2 points in this Shapley cluster. The galactic center at 27 degrees Sagittarius, and then we have the great attractor at 14 degrees Sagittarius. We just had a full moon at 13 degrees Sagittarius. So it was on this point. I think this is very powerful because when I look at the Queen of Pentacles, it makes me say to my Sagittarius is the resources you need are here. They're on their way if they haven't arrived yet. And part of your journey is to be tranquil during this. Let's see. Shanti is being joined by the bear. Rosetta's being joined by the forgiveness card. Rochelle's being joined by the raven. And Celeste is being joined by the novice. So I want to offer this to my Sagittariuses because I really think that the bear here, while it represents history, it also represents the enchantment of storytelling. And your peace will come as you tell a new story about your bounty. I'm ready to be ready to be ready to receive. And in many ways, I'm going to hold a childlike innocence as I learn how to trust the intention of my own words, the intention of my own vibration, because this forgiveness card is never about human forgiveness. It is an understanding that I was in a dark place. And as I shifted the way that I was thinking or feeling or recognizing a situation, and rather than victimizing myself to it, I became the victor because Spirit is saying, Sagittarius, the timing is right. Magic will happen as you follow your heart, as you go. And that's why I want to say anything within 5 to 10 degrees of 13 degrees, 14 degrees of Sagittarius, the great attractor. Remember, it's not the great efforter. It's not the great asserter. It's the attractor. So here she sits calmly. She's aware that she's got this underbelly of thought, but she's not responding to it. So as you start to play music to calm you, or you start to tell a new story, as you start to venture into new territory within your mind or within your child, like your heart body, magic starts to happen. And I want to offer it this way because Celeste, yes, a change in the way I'm thinking, but now those Sagittarians that want to either move or get a new home or venture into a new entrepreneurship, this is going to happen for you because here comes the unstable new beginning. So you're about to start something that you've been thinking about, you've been musing about, you've been wanting. And if you had trepidation about it, or the timing feels like, well, when is it going to happen? We get to start to think that there are other components within this universe that are aligning in order to bring the most awesome experience to your heart. Not a mini experience. So when we say, oftentimes, at least in my experience, I've got a job and maybe I have some money, but I have no time to spend that money. When I have no job, I have the time, but I have no money. Now is a time for Sagittarius specifically to think that the time and the money will come together. And if either one is missing, the universe is conspiring in some way to bring them together. And as you hold peaceful space for that reception of energy and trust your heart, you'll go a long way, very, very long way to fulfilling your dreams. That's one thing. With all my Aries rising, I think I'm very Aries rising because I'm full of fire. Okay. And when someone tells me I can't do something, I get a little bit stubborn about, well, I don't know if I'm going to listen to you. And if I listen to everybody who first of all, I had an employer once tell me, I know how much I pay you. You have no business living in Laguna Beach. And I say, you have no business deciding where I live because you're not the creator of my life. I am. So I really want to offer this to everybody, but I'm kind of rounding out Sagittarius. As you're aware of your beliefs, and as you're willing to be diverse and maybe go in a new direction, well, let me try this out. Let me try that out. That's a great thing about Sagittarius, is they're not boxed in. They're very open and very expansive and wanting to absorb many things. Your ruling planet is right now in the sign of Taurus, where it can actually root in that belief and start to build it with Taurian energy. So I think this is really powerful. So tell the story you want to live, not the story you think you're living. All right, Capricorn. Oh, welcome to Pluto in your house again. And there's a pause. There's a pause offering an epiphany. When I see the Hanged Man, I always sort of picture, I had another tarot deck that was based on mythology, and it was, I think, Prometheus I can't really remember. Please don't quote me. But he was tied to a rock and having a bird peck at him day in and day out. Actually, Chiron saved him and released, I believe it. I'm not sure if I think it was Prometheus. But anyway, my point is this, is that there's a sacrifice there for love. There's a sacrifice of some kind. Now, Capricorn is kind of used to sacrificing. So I think this epiphany could be that your sacrifice is not actually serving the way you think it is, because it's coming from a human perception. So let's look and see, because you're going to go back in, Pluto's going to go back into those last degrees. And for me, Pluto's going to definitely square my Mars again. And I've already experienced that. And I don't know if I think that's so scary for me, because Mars and Pluto both rule Scorpio. So I think there is always cooperation between co-rulers, even if they don't seem cooperative initially, or, when I first look at it, I get to look a little bit deeper, because this epiphany to me, there's a Neptunian feel to the Hanged Man. There's a spiritual dynamic to it. And so there's a part of me that feels like when Capricorn takes all of that steadfast energy and all of that discipline and all of that tenacity, and now you focus it in on your spiritual journey, which is to kick in the laws of attraction, to utilize the laws of the universe, to trust ebb and flow, to know that we're all one, to know that it's not just the law of attraction, but will I allow myself the experience once I attract it in? Because that's where the real rubber meets the road. Oh, thank you so much, Stephen. With the South Node on my brain, I've been feeling a little bit like I was losing it lately. And I say things that I think I'm saying, and then I'm like, I keep messing up the 24th and 5th degree, 23rd and 24th. See, I'm even messing it up when I'm trying to talk about it, because the 20, no, it's a 20, forget about it. 24th degree is Pisces. I keep messing up the 25th and 26th. I keep inverting them inadvertently. So anyway, all right, Capricorn, our first angel is Azure. Your desired outcome will happen in the near future. Have patience and faith, and don't try to force it. The next is Indriel, the light worker. Then Akasha, the teacher. And then Sonia, our connection to the other side. This is the one thing I love about my goats, because most people tend to categorize you in a way that, makes you feel a little bit difficult. And then I see baby goats and I want to laugh, and I want to play with them. I want to do yoga with them. And I say that because I think that that's the transformation, where all of that hard work is now focused in a way that is going to represent leadership for others, and not because you're telling them what to do, but because they're witnessing your own transformation. All right. Azure's being joined by the restriction card. Indriel's being joined by the dragon. Akasha's being joined by the deer, and Sonia's being joined by the dog. Okay, so we start off with the Hanged Man representing a pause that creates an illumination, a pause that gives me an epiphany. And if we look very carefully at the Hanged Man, he is not strapped to this apparatus, but rather it almost looks as if he has chosen to put himself up here and to gingerly let the blood run to his head. And I say that because I think by turning things upside down, that's how we have the epiphany. So Azure says your desired outcome will happen in the near future. And the restriction card goes back to the Hanged Man. Your desire will happen as you have an epiphany. And the epiphany will more than likely be about your own viewpoint, where you're focusing, or it could even become an awareness of efforting. And the efforting is coming from fear, not from joy. Because when we take action and we are in a joyful energy, it really isn't efforting. And efforting is a fear-based energy that actually slows things down. Because Indriel, the light worker, feels like you. Here we see another epiphany with that glowing around her head. And then we see this power and strength card comes from coolness. We can even see the Capricorn rules. I want to say I don't know if it actually rules ice, but we associate cold things sometimes with Capricorn. And so here, I feel like this is about being cool, calm, and collected, because the more cool, calm, and collected is, this is where my power and strength comes, because it doesn't block my epiphanies. Because spirit is, I believe, asking you to become a spiritual teacher as you conquer your fears. And the fears are usually, if we look at our own fears as humans, it's usually a projection of something that could potentially happen to us versus something that is actually currently happening to us. Because here we have Sonia, which represents your team on the other side. And now here represents loyalty, love, unconditional love, and sincerity. And this to me makes me feel as if your connection to spirit is becoming stronger and stronger. And as Pluto, which rules the occult as well as ruling our psychological imprint, as you become aware of these things, now I feel like the big transformation for Capricorn is, I can't judge myself and expect myself to have known something I didn't know. I was doing the best I was doing with what information I had. Now I have a new piece of information. And that new piece of information has really given me an inspiration. And the inspiration is that things will happen for me as long as I relax and I settle into it and I allow it to come through to me. And then I realize that's where my true leadership lies. And that's where my ability to help others lies, because I become more gentle with myself as I learn more and more about myself and my connection to the other side. And now I feel a sense of comfort and a sense of being loved, not only here on this planet, but through the cosmos, through those that watch over me that I can't see with my eyes. Under the moon, I want to offer this, because as Pluto opposes your north node, it means it's conjunct your south node. So here we're looking at Pluto asking you on some level to be egoless to the transformation so that you can rebirth what you're stretching for with your north node. And if it is indeed opposing your Mars, this to me is a bridge. You know, Pluto's like Yoda, Mars is like Luke Skywalker. Pluto is saying you cannot really go kill the bad guy when you're riddled with your own fears, because the bad guy will use the fears against you. And so Mars has to sort of slow his roll a bit and become a spiritual warrior, to become more skilled, to trust the inner knowing versus the eyes. That's how Mars knows how to do that when it's in emergency situations, when it's in wartime. But in everyday life, that can get a little muddied. So under the moon, as you work with these energies, because when I think of a square and when I think of Pluto squaring my Mars, I think of a square as a habitual way of feeling, believing, thinking, behaving. And then I have an awareness that maybe that isn't completely working for me. So I'm trying to implement new ideas, new structures, new ways of thinking. And the tenseness of this shift in me creates a challenge. And yet at the same time, when we have a challenge between cooperative components, the challenge is not as, I think, intense. So Mars is asking you to be brave, and Pluto's asking you to transform so that you may live out your north node more clearly within your life. All right. Got a little distracted there, Capricorn, because we just went inviting our new person under the moon. I love that name. And then we're going on to our Aquariuses. I really think that Aquarius is about to have an amazing time for the next 20 years. And everything that you've been learning while Pluto's been transiting your 12th house is going to support that dynamic. Is that transiting Saturn, or is that your natal Saturn, Stephen? Because if it's your natal, if it's transiting Saturn, then it's really about thinking very clearly what you want for your how you make money. All right. Aquarius, the Empress is here for you. This is a very fertile energy. It's very Venusian. She's very calm. She is, we look at this, we assume oftentimes that she's pregnant. We can see the Venus symbol there. There's pomegranates all over her, her garb, her clothing, and her crown is of the stars. So if that isn't appropriate for Aquarius, I don't know what is. Here we go. And having Pluto sitting at 0 degrees Aquarius for such a long time, it started in March. Now it's been about 3 months. Today, it's going back into Capricorn, and then of course it will revisit that 0 degree in January of 2024. So I really believe there's a birthing process that's going on here, and Pluto is offering a deep psychological awareness of that which I am building my house upon. That's the way I want to put it, and offering liberation from it. All right, Archangel Uriel is here. We have Akasha, the teacher. We have Rosetta. And then we have Daniel, the angel of marriage. Archangel Uriel represents human frustration, anger, and unforgiveness. Well, thank you, Under the Moon. I really, really believe in the evolved version of our planets, and I've been doing a lot of chatting about that for a long time, and I'm not stopping anytime soon. I'm becoming more brave in my rogueness. And this latest video from Julia Balaz and researching her work has convinced me even more so that I've intuitively been on the right track this whole time. Okay, Archangel Uriel is being joined by the Mystery card. Akasha is being joined by the Owl. Rosetta is being joined by the Bear. And Daniel's being joined by the Movement card. I'm going to offer this for my Aquariuses because I feel like, we look at Aquarius rising, we are looking at a Leo 7th house, Venus entering that 7th house and offering us bounty through not just relationships, but also through our willingness to foster and nurture harmony and peace through my creativity and my individual expression, Leo 7th house. So the Empress here is sitting in not an action mode. Again, we're seeing an energy of a more relaxed energy, understanding that in order to truly reign over her own life, it comes through her awareness of not only the stars in the sky, but her own star power. So I want to offer this because if there are transits going on that are presenting challenges for forward motion, I don't know if you really need to continue to choose to be irritated by that, but more of a surrender. Because I want to say this, as Pluto was in your first house at that very 0 degree, there could have been some things that were coming to you that might have felt like, I'm so frustrated. Why didn't I know this before? I've been saying this to Aquarius, Aquarius rules the nervous system, and sometimes it's associated with panic attacks and anxiety and all that Uranus energy. And I really think that is the scientific mind being alerted to the intuitive body. I think anxiety for Aquarius, or nervousness, or feeling unsure, is a little bit of an alert to look deeper into the direction you're going. And is it authentic to your own innovation, your own reinvention, your own advancement? Are you allowing yourself to move forward and to be a little bit outside the box and to embrace that? Because Akasha is the spiritual teacher, and there is learning of duplicity. Balance does not come from even Steven, and we are not broken. There's no need to heal ourselves. When we can extract the wisdom of disruption, extract the wisdom of a challenge, and in my own personal life, I've got a lot of story to tell. I mean, I could tell dark stories for days and days and days and not be done. And now each one of those dark stories, I don't see them that way anymore. I see them as the stepping stones for me being who I am and understanding what I know. Pluto In my early childhood, in my young adulthood, I wanted to die. I was in so much pain. It was I felt so unloved. And the more I needed love from my family, from my parents, the more rejection I got. When I hurt myself, my dad would yell at me, "Go call a doctor." He never came. I don't remember my dad reading me a story or hugging me and feeling love from him. And I got a lot of button on that. But as I have embraced the more challenging sides, I don't want to thank those people for their experience. I don't want to thank them for the abandonment and the feeling isolated. But did it propel me in this direction? Because they told me God did this to me. They told me that God decided who I would be. And I was like, you know what? We're going to have a conversation because I don't like any of this. And then I found out God didn't do it to me. I did it to me. I chose them because they served a purpose. And that purpose was to give me all those experiences that's how I would build my intuitive body. I don't see you guys when I do my intuition. I see me or things I've experienced, because I really believe that you're conquering your history. I believe you're conquering your childhood. You're extracting the wisdom from it now. And when you start to get nervous or anxious or feel a sense of unforgiveness, something's alerting you. It's out of balance for you. So now what I believe, Daniel talks about marriage, okay, on the face of the card, but he talks about your history and relationships as the primary energy here. And I believe there's a movement away from the anchoring of the distasteful childhood experiences or experiences you've had up until now, that as you honor that anxiety, or the beginning of anxiety is, I might be moving in the wrong direction. Something doesn't feel authentic. Somebody's trying to push me somewhere. Somebody's trying to make me do something that isn't me being me. Because this Empress, she's bigger than the Queen. She's more powerful than the Queen. She doesn't have to effort in order for her bounty to come to her, but she does have to exercise patience while it grows. So the patience is inner knowing, because if you have an inner knowing, you don't need to be patient. You're like, it's on its way. I'm ready to be ready to be ready to receive. Yes, wasn't he somewhat? I very much realized that. And, my father had a father just like him. And that's what used to piss me off, because I used to think to myself, well, if you had a dad like that, why are you that dad? Don't you want to improve upon that? But my dad, and then this is where I still struggle. My Aries is still reigning supreme as my Taurus moon. But when I saw that my dad's sun was conjunct Neptune, I was like, oh, there we go. That's why he did. He could be very religious and love God and sing in the choir and be a deacon. And then on Saturday nights, he'd go out and drink his beers and drink his scotch and play golf. And, he just wanted to have fun and didn't want to be too fatherly. I think he also has Saturn in the 5th house. I think, and I looked at his chart and I'm like, oh, I think I get it. All right. On to my Pisces. Okay, this feels very like Saturn to me. Okay, this 4 of Pentacles is a stuck energy. It's an energy where there are resources, and yet I'm not comfortable. I don't feel fluid. I don't feel open. I feel actually very awkward. Now, if you're early born Pisces, this could very well be Saturn making you feel like everything's drying up and I feel stuck. Let's see where we're going with this. It's funny, as I'm aware that Saturn I have Pluto at 5 degrees of Virgo, sorry. And then I have Venus at 10 degrees of Virgo. So I've had Saturn opposing Pluto, and they're my 2 favorite planets. Don't ask me for logic with that, okay? Because I don't know there's no logic in my affinity for them, but my willingness to transform. And so when I saw that opposition coming, I decided to direct the planets. I was like, all right, I'm willing and I'm able to look at my history. I'm willing and I'm able to look at where I've been in my Saturn energy, And how will I allow this opposition to create a bridge for me? Thank you, under the moon. Thank you. That's so sweet of you. Okay, here we go. Because I think what's going on for Pisces is that they're, of all the signs, and Cancer's close, but Pisces, you end up, sometimes you give up yourself too easily. And I feel like there's that, because you're compassionate and you're loving and you're dreamy. You're a little dreamy. You're kind of not even in this body sometimes. And I think that's a little bit where where the stuckness may come. Let's look and see. All right. Archangel Uriel again. Azure, which is lovely. Patience, which is also very lovely. And Mystique. Because I want to start to think, sometimes I want to encourage you guys to think that if I'm stuck, if I'm in a holding pattern, am I really stuck? Or is the universe doing something that I can't see or that I wouldn't be aware of? And it would work out so much better than I had anticipated. Okay, Archangel Uriel's being joined by the owl. Azure's being joined by Merlin. Patience is being joined by the truth, and Mystique is being joined by the spider. All right. If you are a Pisces trying to birth a creative career, whether you're a musician, I don't care if you're creative with finances, because, just because you have a Pisces rising doesn't mean there aren't other things that would make you more material or earthy, okay? But I want to offer it this way, because Archangel Uriel, when I saw it, I really thought it was about frustration. And then I think that there's back and forth results somewhere. And I feel as if you're in some way stuck, there's no movement, you're not moving your story forward, this is an opportunity for you to see that magic happens when you don't try to force a situation, but instead you allow yourself to energetically leap off of the whatever platform you're sitting on and start to focus in on the idea that everything comes to me easily. I am aligned to receiving versus efforting. And that's why I think I've hooked into this Shapley cluster so much, because I've always believed we're a universe of attraction. So here, I think for my Pisces, this is about observing your deeper truth and then trusting that that deeper truth will alchemize for you, because I think it has something to do with your creative endeavors. I feel like it has something to do with work. So if you're a musician or you've wanted to be a musician, but you have held yourself back, you're good at it, but why would anybody like me? Because we can birth our own creativity on this internet in any moment. There's a ton of platforms, and there are people out there that are expressing just themselves, just being themselves, walking through their everyday life, taking the camera and their TikTok audience into Target and into Costco and into Aldi and doing all sorts of things. And so it's time to open up, because I really think it's that Spirit wants you to keep charging ahead with your creativity and expect miraculous solutions to come, because this also represents creativity. It talks about creative projects. And I find this web feels very much like the World Wide Web. And this is where technology is taking us into ways to make resources and to express ourselves through this platform. So if for some reason you're feeling stuck, if Saturn has made you feel like nothing's happening, then this is an opportunity to rest, to recalibrate, to rejuvenate, because Saturn is going to stay at 7 degrees this whole month. So while Saturn stands in the sky like this, it's about diplomacy. It's about balance. It's about harmony. It's about being not diplomatic with others, but with yourself. You know what? And I want to offer it this way, because I believe, and I don't know the whole story because I don't follow the media, but I believe that Taylor Swift was in some sort of lawsuit with somebody who bought her library of music and was wanting to milk her money. And now she has gone about, she is somehow reinventing herself or that music to get around whatever it was that happened, where this person bought her music, where she felt stifled, where she felt somebody betrayed her. And so if for some reason you are feeling stuck with your creativity, Pisces, or you feel somehow stuck in your ability to birth something. Let's put it that way. It could be because what you would be birthing it on is not as fertile as you think it is, because there's something more fertile coming your way. And I think part of that is where you just don't let yourself get frustrated. Just look at the pause as an opportunity to extract information from the universe, because your desired outcome will happen and you will make money from it. But observing your own believability, it's not just the first gate you walk through, it's all the gates you walk through. Every time you become more successful, you could inevitably, and I do mean inevitably, think, oh no, I have more responsibility. I have more, I've got to do more for others. And I don't think that's the case. I think this is about you allowing yourself to create that network, to keep charging ahead, and knowing that when you're authentic to your own sense of self, the bounty that you want that will keep you feeling sustained on this planet will show up. I think that if Saturn right now is conjunct your natal Mercury, I think it's two things, 145 Club. I think, first of all, yes, it's going to have you thinking about your story, your history, your childhood, your everyday life. But it also gives you an opportunity, because that is in Pisces, to start to use your Saturnian energy to create communication with the other side, with your oversoul. Doesn't have to be another being. It can just be a bigger part of who you are. Not all of who you are is in this body and the name that you call yourself. A large part of you is not incarnate. Our little brains can't fathom how big we are. All right, onto our Aries, rising moon, sun, and stelliums. The world. This is a reward card. This is actually Saturn in a high vibration, because it's reward. It's where the Fool has gone through the whole journey of the major arcana, and now he's learned how to master the various elements. The element of earth, the element of fire, the element of, this to me feels like water, because this is the eagle representing Scorpio, and then the mind. And a sense of vulnerability to the journey, because we must be open-minded, open-hearted, willing to receive, because the magic comes through this vulnerability to that which is not structured by humans. We have a dynamic right now where there's an industry that is making the human feel as if their body does not know how to operate without some sort of augmentation. Okay, you can't go out in springtime without your Claritin. Your kidneys are going to need this, and this is going to need that. I mean, the ads, at least here where I live, they're not if something's going to happen to you anymore. It's when it's going to happen to you. And if you're being born at a time and your brain is being trained to be fearful moving forward, then this is a time where we're going to start to use the elements to represent the truth of what this apparatus can do on its own. And we're going to see a polarizing dynamic of that. I'm going to admit something right now, so you guys just be gentle with me. Ever since Saturn moved into Pisces, I've been listening to classical music and watching the Waltons on TV. I used to watch the Waltons when I was a kid, and I loved the show, and I don't know why. I just started watching it, and I got sucked back into 1970 something. And recently, they've been doing a lot of episodes about like somebody being sick or something happening. And I'm seeing these old remedies come up that have been coming up in other areas of my life. And I feel when I say that part of the dynamic is that we're going to start to marry some of the more empowering ways of using the things of the earth in their natural form to heal the physical. So I'm saying this because there's something about using all the elements that you've learned, everything you learned about yourself, Aries, when your ruling planet was going through Gemini for 7 months. You were learning about how you interact with others. You were learning about your vibration and how your mind works. And because normally, you're zipping around quickly. Mars is, I got to go. Aries is a very impatient energy. So when it was stuck literally in Gemini for 7 months, this is where I think Pluto having its opposition to Mars recently When Mars went into Leo, that's where this conversation happened. What did you learn? Pluto was saying to Mars. What did you learn when you were in Gemini for all those months about how you interact with others, how you inspire them, or do you disengage them? Do you hold their feet to the fire, or do you raise them up like the phoenix from the ashes? It's a very responsible position you have, being in the first house of the zodiac, learning about the self. So now you're going to get reward. Let's see, because I'm an Aries rising. And Jupiter just went through your house. And it's now in your second house of resources and money. So you could completely rewrite your self-worth and feel so much more deserving. Okay, our first angel is Chantal. The second is Archangel Michael. The third is Grace and Antoinette. And the final is Omega, Victory. Chantal is an angel of romance. And I believe Mars is still in Leo for a little while longer. You know, Mars and Venus are not conjunct, really. They're not that close, but they're traveling together. So Chiron is exalted in Virgo. That's actually the what I learned was the Chiron is exalted in Virgo because the wound is the gift and it helps to heal others. It also uses the elements of nature to heal the body. All right, Aries, Chantal talks about romance. Let's see if this is really romance. Ooh, there's the dog, unconditional love, loyalty, and sincerity. Archangel Michael is being joined by the fire fairy. Grace and Antoinette is being joined by the owl, and Omega is being joined by the forgiveness card. That's very interesting to me. So, you know, to me, this is interesting because when I look at the world card, I very much feel as if I have integrated information and experiences for my betterment, for my power, for my ability to create. When I first saw Chantal, I didn't really think of a relationship. I thought about, what do I love? What energy do I love to be around? And the dog doesn't just represent unconditional love. It represents sincerity and loyalty. And this has made me feel as if Mars is becoming the hero. Mars is becoming aware of his ability to be brave, and he knows how to use his sword. He knows, how to cut through the thick of it. And now he's using it not like a banshee, just trying to break things down, but with prowess and with skill. Because Archangel Michael has been asking you to have the courage to use your fire for compassion, to lead others through your ability to, I'm going to say it, to have empathy in some ways. If you think about Mars, when I think about, the fireman that's going into the burning building to save the kitten or to save, the beloved pet of the family whose house is burning down, there is an obvious, to me, ability to feel compassion. Some people would say it's an animal who cares. But we're not like that anymore. So many of us, especially those of us that live alone, that have animals, they are our family. So I'm using this as an example because I believe that Mars is becoming more compassionate. And yes, it goes back and forth, but now you're starting to see things from a different place. And instead of just running through trying to create, disruption, I don't think you're doing that anymore, because here's the victory card and here's the reconciliation of forgiveness. So what you're learning, it's almost like, okay, when I think of Pisces, I kind of think you're almost too mutable sometimes and too empathetic of others, and it pulls you out of balance. And I could say Aries is the opposite. It lacks empathy for others. It's like, get over yourself, move on. And now this planet, Mars, is learning how compassion is an important part of being a hero. Empathy, but without giving in to the story. So you empathize with the human journey of awareness, of waking up. And I believe that you're starting to be seen in a transformed way. I believe that you're starting to feel transformed. I believe that having Mars in Leo right now is really about you expressing yourself in the ways that you love, in the ways that feel authentic to who and what you are and where you've been on this planet and where you're going. And I believe that the real gift of this week is that there's an interior shift in you and that you become more embracing of the parts of you that maybe other people try to dumb down. I oftentimes, when I see a Aries stellium, I think that there was a childhood where the child was very busy, very probably had a little bit of a fiery expression, you could say anger issues, and people try to contain that. That's why they give children drugs if they think they're ADHD. I always say that ADD is all day dreaming, and that the child that is disruptive is not being engaged in their intelligence. And now, as we rewrite those stories, and instead of trying to be dumbed down, we raise them up to their natural prowess, to their natural skills. I think Aries is coming into a place here after Jupiter going through your first house. You've rewritten the beliefs you have over that year about who and what you are and what you're capable of. And as you've done that, and as you've been aware of, because I've had to ask myself as an Aries rising, would I give up my fire? Would I give up the label that I'm hostile or that I can be angry? No, I wouldn't. Because if I gave it up, I'd have to give up all the good parts. So I'd rather tone myself and hone myself and trust myself more than to give up that part of me. Because this is about you, being sincere to you and learning to love yourself beyond the resentments that you have for others. I don't like, I literally have a fear that I'm going to die and my dad is going to be sitting on the other side saying, so you're going to thank me now for treating you the way I did when you were a child? And I'm not going to say yes. If I say yes, I'm going to be shocked, but I'm not, because that part of me, I'm still pissed about it. Do I see a wisdom of it? Do I see how it propelled me? Yeah, but I'm not going to give him credit for it. I'm going to give me credit for it, because I'm the one who had to work it out. I'm the one who had to maneuver through all of that. This is how my dad used to say, I love you. He didn't say, I love you, Teri. He said, you know I love you, don't you? Now that is not feel like love. That made me feel like I was obliged and obligated to make him feel better about how he was loving me. So, as an Aries rising, and as I claim myself and I start to love all the little parts of me, and I start to be more loyal to myself, I start to be more courageous in toning down some of the more difficult parts of me. And then I start to have more compassion for myself as I buzz back and forth between the evolved version of myself and the pattern imprinted part of myself. And as I demonstrate the renovated part of myself, I actually give a sense of credit or a sense of honor or a sense of appreciation for the rocky road that brought me there. All right, on to our Tauruses. Woo! Taurus, you are so fortunate over this next year to have Jupiter in the house. Not only will it help calm the history with which you were raised upon, it will probably bring a whole new world. Okay, yeah, I'm a big Disney movie in my head. This hard ass of mine is just a big old marshmallow on the inside. I agree, small wildflowers. I got a bit of a sharp tongue myself. Like I'm the type, if someone throws a barb at me, I just barb it right back, and then I get annoyed by the barbing. So, oh wow, 145 Club. That's a busy child you had there, huh? Yeah. Well, I want to say this too, because some people who have what appears to be a really difficult early part of their life, oftentimes they are here to be of great service, because that initial experience, whatever it is of challenge, is like a propellant for them, and especially in Aries. I've talked about him before. I've recently become aware of Jelly Roll. He's a country singer, was a rapper. He recently won some awards. He's really suddenly become in the forefront of music. He's got tattoos on his face. He had a very difficult childhood, and Yeah, I love his songs. I really like him too. I think he's a beautiful teacher because he's kind of a perfect example of what I call a spiritual leader who walks through this. He was in jail when his daughter was born. He was in jail. He didn't get to be there. And he's driving around in his car trying to, get his life on track. And he meets this gal, Bunny, and Bunny's got her own story. Okay. And when I look at them, I just see transformation all over the place. I see that without their kind of challenging, she calls herself Trailer Park, and she's not saying it to be nice. She's kind of saying, this is where I came from. And yet at the same time, she's reconciled that experience to make her who she is. She's got some strong Capricorn Aries energy. I haven't quite got her chart figured out, but I'd love to look at her chart. He's a Sagittarius, I think. And I think this is why he comes across so lovable. And he also has a lot of edge to him. So it's not like you're looking at somebody who's completely turned it around. All right, Taurus. This is exciting. Going to finally get to my Tauruses. This is money. This is the Eight of Pentacles. It represents the master who has created a certain amount of what he wants. Now we're going back and we're fine-tuning things. We're adding the detail. And it's a process because these all have to be done. He's only finished one and he's still working here. I think that this is going to be, if we think about Jupiter was transiting your Aries 12th house. So as that happened, there's the potential that you went through a whole revision of things, kind of looking at how you've been, asserting yourself in the Aryan energy, what ancestral patterns have affected you. And now as that Jupiter has moved into your first house, this is an opportunity to now apply all that knowledge into making yourself feel more secure with money and your resources, and that they're never ending because you make them. He created this. So something that you will create will sustain you. And I think, to be honest, the best thing we can ever cultivate is our belief, because whatever we believe, we manifest. So let's see where we're going with this, Taurus. I love my dog. All right. Welcome, Isabel. So nice to see you in the room. All right, Taurus, here we go. Oceana is our first angel. The second is Omega Victory. The third is Crystal. And the final is Azure. Ooh, I love it. So my Taurus moon is happy. I don't know the dates, but I was even looking because Jupiter's going to retrograde in Taurus later on in the year, and it's going to go past my moon again. And I'm like, oh, yay. It's going to hit me 3 times. Yay. All right. Oceana is being joined by the Earth Fairy. Omega is being joined by the Letting Go card. Crystal's being joined by the Disruption card. And Azure's being joined by the Water Fairy. All right. I really think that for my Tauruses, now, Taurus rules history. Taurus rules, and so does Capricorn. Okay. I'm not going to, there's a blending, but Capricorn, I always think of as ruling historic things like the world history, whereas Taurus rules your family history, how you garnished your self-worth by your experience with your inner group. Now, I want to offer this because this Eight of Pentacles tells me you're building something in the material world, and now it's time to look at the deeper details of what that building is. And if Jupiter is going through your first house, there could be a real grounding or settling into the earth energy, your emotional body, and your intuitive mission in life. I really believe that the soul chooses certain things. Sometimes we're very much in an earthly place where we're just, living within the human structure, and yet we intuitively are sending a message to others. And here it feels like there's something, you're grounding your own intuitive body somewhere. You're starting to feel the synergy of the material and the emotional and how they work together. Because as you are letting go of your fears. Here's my song, Let It Go. It's funny how some distance makes everything look small, and the fears that once controlled me can't get to me at all. It's time to see what I can do, to test the limits, to break through. No right, no wrong, no rules for me. I'm free. There's your victory. Because now you're paying attention to not just what you're amassing, but the detail of how that's affecting you and how you want it to affect you. When I first started working on my own, I thought I just wanted to make money. If I have money, I'll be happy. And then I had money and I realized, I don't know if it's the money. I mean, not that I have that much money. I just had enough money. I have flow of money. That's the way I want to put it, because I don't have any money in the bank. I don't roll that way. But what I do have is a deep, deep belief. And that belief has become more and more rooted in my experience, because I've learned how to trust what I cannot see. And yes, it is disruptive to the human eyeballs. Okay. The Taurus energy is like, let me see that. Let me build it. Let me look at that farmland. Let me work that land and make something happen. And at the same time, once the farmer plants the seeds, you got to let go and let it do its thing. Right. So I believe that my Tauruses, Azure says your desired outcome will happen in the near future. Have patience and faith, and don't try to force it. And there's the emotional lineup. This is the water fairy in direct relation to the earth fairy. So I believe, Taurus, that as Jupiter moves through your first house, your faith in yourself is growing. Your ability to trust your talents and your skills, to start to birth them in the world, is going to start to bring a victorious feeling to you. And I don't know if I think it's necessarily reflected in material resources, because I feel like there's already a sense of material foundation, something I'm sitting on, and now I'm going to take it to an elevated level. The 8 by nature is an abundant number. It's also the sign of infinity. So here, I think that my Tauruses are starting to root their emotional body, their spiritual body, their intuitive body into their earthly experience. They're starting to trust and be aware of their fears, not to try to eradicate them or to give in to them, but know that they're a point of reference. There's something going on there that could potentially empower me. I really feel like, the ideas of resentment and the feelings of anger and emotion, I feel like, for me, when I started to, I don't, I'm, yes, can I blame my parents on some level for how they treated me? Yeah, but there's a bigger part of me as I've aged that knows there's a reason that I chose those two people. There's a reason why, and while I'm not really, I never want to go back and live those feelings again. I also know that it is my reconciliation of my own personal anger and resentment that helps me to be maybe a better representative for what can be. I don't want to call myself a teacher per se. I don't know if I'm smart enough to guide anybody, but I can represent the most authentic version of myself. And doing so, I hope that offers you an opportunity to be the most authentic version of yourself. And Taurus, just in rounding things out, you're a builder too. You build just like Capricorn does. And as you build what you want and you get down to the details of what's important to you, things will start to manifest in a beautiful way. So yes, it's the balancing of cycles in many ways. It's the awareness of the human veil. That's what I think the Aquarian age is the awareness of the imprint and the pattern, and then the distinguishing between it. So, all right, everybody, that's it. I keep trying to shorten these broadcasts, and I just keep talking more and more and more. So bear with me. I want to thank Small Wildflowers always for being the Batman to my Robin, the Ben to my Jerry, the Lucy to my Ricky. And I want to thank all of you for being here. I appreciate you so much. And I invite you to come back next week. We'll be here It will be Father's Day in the United States, but not a holiday for me. So I'm going to be here. But thanks, everybody. And we'll see you next week. And be sure to like and subscribe if you haven't already. And we'll see you soon. All right. Peace out, you guys. See you later.